you gotta give a little to get a little. You just can't give too much. And like what too much is subjective. I didn't have any visibility into like what is the value of my services? What is the value of my talent? And I started talking to people who had built products before, who worked for, so there's a really large cybersecurity company here in Houston. You know, people don't even know what a CRNA should be making in a certain situation or a certain geographical location. To me, it felt chaotic. It felt disorganized. I was like, it's a bowl of noodles. So like any CRNA that's asking for a salary is guessing. Any employer that's offering a salary is guessing. So really we want to kind of start getting in the middle of that and seeing like what exactly CRNAs should be getting paid.
Welcome back to Investing Iron Podcast. Today we're chatting with, oh man, I was so worried about pronouncing your first name right that I didn't even like take a look at your last name. So I'm just going to say we're here with Joy, the founder of the Locum App. Can you tell us I saw on your Instagram you were teaching somebody how to pronounce your first name, but can you run us through the whole thing?
Yeah, so you have to sing our language, Yoruba, to say things correctly. And so it's Ayoade. And then my last name is Ademuyewo.
Oh, I like that. Why don't they sing my name?
You sing. What's the language again?
So it's Yoruba. It's a West African language. It's Nigerian. Very old, and it's one of those languages that are very sing-songy, sort of like Vietnamese, and it's very tonal.
Oh, okay. I usually think about Nigerian and Vietnamese kind of like very similar.
yeah, they're so close.
They're not as flat as like, you know,
I put
English,
those together.
A
lot of languages can be.
A lot of crossover.
It's like, yeah, real similar right there.
Yeah. But yeah, well, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Now that we've figured out who we all are.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So we usually like to start off. I mean, this is just speaking of nurses. So tell us about your background and how you got into nursing.
How did I get into nursing? I had a friend in high school that was going to be a nurse. I've always been very nerdy and would just read all the time and never talk to anyone. So she was like my only friend. And she was like, I'm going to go be a nurse. And I was like, oh, nursing. I never thought about that. I wanted to, funny enough, I wanted to be an economist. And everybody told me I would never make any money being an economist because like professors don't make any money. So, you know, being a Nigerian immigrant daughter, I was like, I'm going to listen to my parents. They were like, go into healthcare. You'll never be broke. So I talked to my friend Denise, and we decided we were going to go to college together and we were going to room together. Denise never made it to college with me. She never went to nursing school. She had a baby and like is married now and like has her great life, but I ended up in nursing school without her. Ended up enjoying the journey, met most of my friends that I'm still friends with today in nursing school, stuck with that for a while. And then I think actually it was my sophomore year when I had just started nursing school, I saw a CRNA come to a pediatric intubation at one of the hospitals in downtown Dallas. And I was like, what was that? And I went home that day and I started looking it up, and now here we are.
So was it specifically because it was a CRNA, or was it because it was just like somebody coming in? Like if it had been in I have to be very careful with Josh. Like I have to refer to them as nurse anesthesiologist and physician anesthesiologist.
So he says that on the show, but in every single one of our text messages, he calls me an assistant, and he knows that he knows that bothers me because that's not it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Colin, go on.
Well, no, but would you have gone to med school? Like, had you seen a physician anesthesiologist?
Actually, my family pushed a lot for me to go to medical school. I just never had any interest in like curing people. What was interesting to me about that whole situation was she came in, she had a tackle box full of tools. They moved the bed out of her way. She dropped the tube, and then she got out of there. And I was like, that's dreamy. Yeah, I never had any interest in like, you know, let me put on a white coat and like go fix people, which I think is like an amazing career, and like people who are called to do that should do it. It was more for me like the science of anesthesia and like how cool it is that you can give people medicine and they go to sleep and then they wake up. Like, to me, I always describe my job as having the privilege and the opportunity to pretty much pilot the human body for a living. Like, that's how I see it.
And it's very hands-on. Like there's a lot of specialties where you don't do anything, you just think a lot, which I don't like to think a whole lot. I like to actually use my hands and perform tasks. And
anesthesia is like cooking also. It's like, you put the right thing with the right person, you get the effects you're looking for. If you don't, you take a little away. If you want more, you add a little more. Like the art and the science is just, to me, much more interesting than like going to fix people.
That's it. I need to tell my wife this. She's always trying to get me to cook more in the kitchen. Now I'm gonna be like, I'm so busy cooking. Yeah. I can't keep cooking here when I get home too.
Turn up that SIBO a little bit. Turn up the heat.
Like this thing.
Little ketamine sprinkle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Your parents should just be thankful you weren't on your ER rotation, because the other people that come in with tackle box and drop people off and leave them is like fire, and then you would have gone that route.
Yeah, no, I
you would have been
never had
not nerdy enough though.
Not nerdy enough. Like I was one of the people that really enjoyed CRNA school because I was learning something that was so foreign to me. As nurses, we don't really get as deep a background in like physiology and pathophysiology as we did once we like started anesthesia training. So that was what was like lighting up all the things in my brain, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is for me.
Yeah. I know you probably get the same question, but everybody always asks me like, oh, how tough is CRNA school? And I always tell them I actually think it's easier than nursing school, because in nursing school they're asking you difficult questions that you don't know the full story to. But at least in anesthesia, you can work through the questions because you have a deeper understanding and you figure it out.
You don't really have a choice in knowing it at that really deep level. Like you need to understand all the patho, all the physiology, all the anatomy to like make it work. So yeah, it's just more fun.
Yeah. So that was early on then that you saw this and you were like, okay, that's the route I want to go. So did you go straight into nursing with that expectation that you're going to go back to school and do this?
Yeah, like I saw that person, I want to say at like one of my earlier rotations in nursing school. And once I went home and I figured, I was like, oh, a nurse could do that? That was a nurse? Oh, okay. So then I looked up what CRNAs were. I found out it was going to be really hard to do and I had to be in the ICU. So from then on, it was like, I'm that way in life in general, is once I fixate on something, it's like, oh, my compass is turned this way, and everything went towards that.
I fixate on stuff too, but it's usually like something like that I'm looking for on Craigslist, like a bicycle or
oh, don't worry,
not as productive. Yeah.
Shoes, bags, clothes.
So then what so did you go straight into ICU then?
I did. I went straight into, I started neuro ICU. I think I got my CCRN like the minute I was allowed to take the test, and then the minute I was allowed to apply to CRNA school, I applied, and the minute I could start, I started. I just really was interested to get into the profession, I guess.
So when did you graduate from your CRNA school?
Yeah, that was back in 2018. Oh my gosh, I'm old. 2018. Yeah.
Did you go to school in Dallas?
I went in Houston.
Okay.
I went in Houston, yeah. So actually trained in the med center, got to do some really like cool cases, work in some cool hospitals, some cool, really old hospitals. So
yeah. So that's the same year I graduated. So that's cool. But
where did you go?
So I went to, it was Wolford College when I was accepted there. And then it was, politics. They lost their accreditation. I'm not sure what it was, to be honest, but now they're Kaiser University. They partnered up.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on any of that. But I think they partnered with Kaiser, and now on my transcripts say I graduated from Kaiser University. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Could get you right.
What about
into the
you,
system.
Colin?
So I did ER nursing. I still do ER nursing. I was out for a little bit, but I just got back in recently, and so yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
Up in Napa, Napa, California. I say up in Napa because I'm from LA and we just moved back up here. But yeah, it was good. I mean, it's thought about the CRNA route, but it was like right at the time that I was thinking about it. We were getting into investing in real estate, and so I
Yeah.
was like, I
You
could
made
make
smarter choices.
Yeah.
well. So it's like one of those things, and I think that's like something that we're like always looking at. It's like, okay, what's the best use of our time? Like, what's our long term plan? Because it's like, if I wanted to be at the bedside in some capacity for the rest of my life, like going back to CRNA school would have been smart. But long term, spoiler alert, I don't want to be in the hospital long term for the rest of my life. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
realized that after I went to CRNA school.
Same.
So
Yeah.
smarter choices. Smarter
Yeah.
choices.
But so like what, like for you specifically, because I think a lot of people, Josh and Josh's dad is also a CRNA, and he's always quoting facts. So we're brother-in-laws, so he's my father-in-law, so he's always trying to encourage me and my wife Jen, his daughter, to go to CRNA school, because he's like,
Yeah, we do that.
yeah. Well, and the reason he's always doing it is because he's like, I've only ever met one CRNA who didn't like their job,
Yeah,
but
we
that
all
doesn't
love our jobs.
but it doesn't necessarily mean you want to do it for the rest of your life as well, though, right? Yeah.
I mean, enjoying your work is important, but work is still work. So I think two things can be true at the same time. You can love your work and want to do it less because you want to live life more.
Yeah. So what I guess is there about the hospital that would maybe push you out sooner rather than later?
So I actually don't work very much anymore. Right now, I'm lucky if I get like 3 days a month in.
Oh, wow.
I try to do 4. But for me, and I don't know if anybody else identifies with this, but my family immigrated here. There's a lot of still people back home. Living in the U.S. has been great. It's been great in terms of like opportunity for me, for my family, but it's not home. Home is somewhere else. My childhood was very different, and the way that I kind of like to live my life in general is very different. The idea of like going to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it's not something that I grew up with. Like people where I'm from are very enterprising, like they're entrepreneurial, they create value in society and exchange that value with other people, and then they get to live their life, how they want. So it was just that, like the life that I was living, like was not normal to me, in the sense that I was waking up every day, I was going to the OR, and then I got weekends if I was lucky. Or I was like on call on the weekend, and then like I got like a random, like Tuesday or something off. So yeah, I just wanted freedom, and I wanted flexibility, and I wanted to be able to pay my bills and like take care of what I need to take care of without sacrificing so much of my time at work. I was also, I think, burning out because I went to school really young. I did high school, college, straight to the ICU, straight to CRNA school. And it was like, I had done all those things because I wanted to kind of like secure that level of, to me, success early in life. Because I do believe that it's great to like have a background in something that is solid and to have something that is in healthcare. But yeah, I just knew that wasn't going to be my life forever. Like I wanted to be able to like travel whenever I wanted to. I wanted to meet other types of people outside of my work environment. Because that's the thing, you work a lot, all your friends are like coworkers. So I'm like, I want diversity in my life. I want, all these things. Yeah, so I just thought I need to make a change. So I went 1099. I was like, I'll just work part-time, I'll do my 3 days a week or whatever. And I was doing that, which is then what led me to transition totally out of healthcare. And now I'm doing something totally different. So yeah, it was just that.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted a little bit of a more fluid life.
You just wanted to work on your own terms. Like you didn't want to be forced to do anything. That's kind of what we're working towards.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting too that you're like, referring to, the lifestyle you grew up with, because it's become the norm. It's like, I grew up in LA, and everybody works, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then even worse, these people, and not everybody, but it's like the weekend comes around. It's like they go out Friday night, they party, they go out Saturday night, they party. Sunday, they wake up and like they're hungover and they're watching football, probably drinking or something again. And I'm just like, I can't imagine that being my life, but that's kind of what, the American, like that's like the American dream, I guess. I don't know, have a house, like have a good job, like have a nice
I don't know how
car,
dreamy it is.
watch football on Sundays. And to me, I like hearing what you're saying, and like, I haven't had a lot of experience. I lived in Mexico for a while, and it was a much different lifestyle down there. But I haven't had long-term experiences in other countries. So it is interesting to hear that, like, there's just this different, more fluid lifestyle. And I think a lot of other
Yeah,
places have a lot more community involvement, like more emphasis on
exactly.
that.
Exactly. It's yeah, it was like difficult to see friends. You had to coordinate schedules. Not that it's any better now. The flexibility is better now, but I'm much busier, so it's not necessarily that. It's like it's just when do you get time to like lay in the grass? When you get time to
Yeah.
just like go toss a ball around with someone, like with your neighbor or whatever. Yeah, I was just working so much and everything was about work. And when you're doing anesthesia, it's like work in such a, you're in the ER, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Work in such a like high pressure environment, and you're dealing, especially in the OR, with like surgeons and other OR staff who are also under pressure, and like the egos, and
Yeah.
something goes wrong with the patient and you're thinking about it forever. It was just like, okay, gotta find a way to do this where I'm not required to like get up every single day and go to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much are you in the hospital now? Because I think I've seen you post that you still work in the hospital because you enjoy it, but you just don't want to do it every day anymore.
No, I can't do it every day anymore. So I have a plastic surgeon that I'm lucky enough to be able to work with sometimes when he needs help. And then there's another place where every once in a while they'll need a backup on the weekends, and I'll like pop in. But yeah, very much work from home. Like I'm working now. And I was like, oh, I've got a meeting, got to jump. So yeah, just working from home most of the time now. And really, I look forward now to being in the OR on those days. It's a delicate balance because you'll go to the OR and sometimes something will happen, or like the surgeon will be in a bad mood and you're like, oh, thank God I don't have to deal with this every day. Or other times I'm doing this and engineering is making me angry, so I'm like, like I transition to this, I could be in the OR right now sitting down, like chatting with the circulator or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah.
balance.
You mentioned how much you were working, and now you're not like technically working as much, but you're busy all the time. And like, we've kind of been going through that as we're doing this business thing. It's like, I had 2.5 years where we're just doing property management for our real estate portfolio. And it felt a lot better because it was like, it was on my terms, and I'd wake up and I'd have like the day to just kind of like drag my feet a little bit in the morning, get started when I get started, and then like just that freedom. But then there were days when I was like hanging out at the beach and I'm getting all these phone calls, and I'm like, man, when I was just working 36 hours a week, when I was off, I was off.
Nobody was calling me. Yeah.
Nobody's bothering me. It was kind of great. When I was there, it was terrible, but when I was like off, it was great. So how have you found that change in like now the busyness versus the work?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm still figuring it out. We're still growing. So up until now, everything has been just me, which has really taken a lot. I haven't really had the time to think about how busy I am because it's just like getting to the next thing. But I'll say after doing it now for, I would say, I think we launched about a year ago. I think in July was when we started posting jobs and stuff. I'm learning now that I have to be very, very like careful and protective of my time, which is something that I'm learning from other entrepreneurs that I'm meeting now, like in my network. And they'll tell you the most valuable thing you have is your time, and you have to be like very judicious about it, and you have to be very like vicious about saying no, which I'm still struggling with, right? Because we're friends with everybody and we want community is important, but when you're busy and you have like this thing where you're kind of like the rate limiting factor in things being done, like I have to kind of be ahead of everybody at any given time. Yeah, I can't afford to burn out, so I have to be just more protective with my time. I just have to be more judicious these days, which is crazy.
So I think we kind of want to start getting kind of into your business a little bit and in the app that you've created. So, I mean, I'm sure it started with everything starts with an idea. Like we all have ideas, we all have 1,000 ideas. But what made you decide that this was the idea that you were gonna focus on and build a business out of?
I think the way I would answer that is I think it was just so big. Like the problem was so big, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. And what was the problem that you identified?
I would say there's 4 problems. There's just the shortage that we're experiencing as healthcare providers, just in healthcare in general. The system does not have enough people to take care of all the people that need to be taken care of. Then there's the fact that healthcare is a business, a huge business. It's the largest economy in the US. There's so many people in this business making tons of money. And I, as the provider, I didn't have any visibility into like what is the value of my services? What is the value of my talent in this market? What value do I bring and for whom, and how can I make sure that I'm extracting as much of that as I need to be so that I'm not taking advantage of. Besides that, it seemed like in order for me to get the things I wanted, so if I wanted to start a new job, for example, I either had to deal with, a 30-year-old job board that didn't give me all the things that I needed and I had to do more work than I wanted to. Or if I wanted things to be easy for me, I would just wait around and a recruitment agency would just come by and they would, offer me this nice glistening job. And then I'd go through the process and realize, okay, they're incentivized to make money and they're incentivized to make money in these certain ways. And I'm completely blind to it. I don't know who I'm working for, how they're making money, what's their interest in me. So then I was like, oh my God, it's a market without a marketplace. That's the problem. There's all these problems. People don't even know what a CRNA should be making in a certain situation or a certain geographical location. To me, it felt chaotic. It felt disorganized. I was like, it's a bowl of noodles. And it started not as me saying like, I'm going to go fix this problem. It started as me saying, well, why does it exist this way? So I would ask questions. I started asking people that I worked for at the time, management within whatever group I was working for. I'd get on, like the Facebook forums and see what people were talking about, all these problems that people would just come and discuss amongst each other. So I was like, well, who's solving it? Like, let me go find that person so I can give them my money to make things better for me because I have a long career ahead. And I don't want to do this forever. So it's got to get fixed somehow, right? Someone's working on it. And I just never found that person. And I think about like 2.5 years into like doing the research, I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to have to start a business. So that's really how it happened. I was like, oh, I think I got to do this. And I put it down a couple of times, like I would come up against a barrier and I'd be like, you know what? It's not going to work out. Let me just stop. But then I just got obsessed. I got obsessed with the problem. I got obsessed with the way the solution was starting to like peek its head, how difficult it was going to be, the fact that it would require so many different people from different industries to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Having to transition into tech and learn something totally different. Like product design is a whole science. I didn't know that. So yeah, I think it was just like the challenge of that. And being in the mix was really attractive for me. So I just committed. I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. You had this idea. I think the problem you recognize within the CRNA community is a similar problem that we've seen in nursing. But I don't know enough about the CRNA locum industry to know like how many competitors there are out there. But within travel nursing, we've thought about this, and I know people that have started travel companies and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's like the process of like, how do you take that idea and actually develop it into something? And like, when you get to the tech side, for me, it's just like, yeah, not happening. So did you have like a little tech background, or did you just outsource that? How did you solve that problem?
I had no tech background. But I knew I needed to get it. It was kind of like when I went to anesthesia school and I had like a little bit of nursing background, but that foundation that needed to be built in school, I was like, I'm going to have to treat this as if I'm going to school for something else. So that's what I did. I realized that the people who solve problems that are this complex in this day and age tend to be tech companies. They're venture backed. They have a ton of, like they're networked. They're using different solutions to, different parts of different solutions to make one whole thing. Because when I saw like the breadth of the problem, I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be this type of company, this type of profile that's going to be able to solve this. So what are the steps I need to take to do that? And really having a strong tech background, obviously, was a no-brainer. Like that had to be there. So I just started networking within like my local tech community. I was like, where are the techies in Houston? So, put on some clothes, a little makeup, some shoes, go out, network. And I started talking to people who had built products before, who worked for, so there's a really large cybersecurity company here in Houston called LionGuard. And I would network with some of the engineers like who had worked there, some of the product people who had worked there. And I would tell them like, hey, I have this idea, this is the problem. I want to solve it. They're like, okay, like, do you have a deck? And I was like, what's a deck? Like, what are you people talking about? So that kind of started it all, was people would give me advice. I'm like, oh, if you're trying to solve a problem like this, here's what you need to do. Read this book, go here, talk to this person. And that's really how it happened. So I ended up finding a technical partner that could build our first version. And that's what the advice I got was like, build your first version, go out, see how customers interact with it, and then use that, raise money, make it better. So that was sort of the formula that I was told. And I was like, okay, I got it. Let's go do it one step at a time. So we built the first thing. We got people to use it. We got their feedback, and now we're going to make it better. So yeah, it's just kind of like taking that step-by-step guidance from people who have done this before. Just by, again, like being part of a community and building that community. Kind of like you guys.
Well, I mean, I think Josh and I are always coming up with these ideas all the time. Like, I feel like I have a new idea every day. Most of them are trash, but like the good ones, the good ones, I obviously don't want to like just go out and like give away, I would say. So like, as you're going out to these networking events, like how are you, I guess, safeguarding your information so that somebody else who is tech savvy, yeah, like what are you doing to protect yourself?
That is such a good question. So I think one of the things I'm learning in life is you got to give a little to get a little. You just can't give too much. And like what too much is subjective. So there were people that I would network with that I would just say, here's my basic idea. And then if things got deeper, like if you wanted to talk about code and like, actual feature requests and feature, business requirements and all those things, you sign an NDA. That's pretty normal in this industry, but not when the idea is fresh, written on a napkin, you don't have a prototype, you don't have any like idea of the market size, you've not done any research. I think it's like once it's fleshed out, then, there's, I think, reasonable belief that someone might take it and do something with it. But the advice that I got was, if you don't tell people what problem you're trying to solve, they're not going to be motivated to come and help you. They don't know how. And I'll say that has been a game changer, is me just going to people and being like, hey, I have this problem. Can you help me? That has gone from let's just have talks and sketch things out on an iPad to I'm going to come on board and become an advisor and write 6-figure checks. So it's in that process that you get to know people, that people get interested in your idea. I feel like that's sort of like my job now. I think this whole CEO role is a little bit like overdone personally, but honestly, like the E in it should stand for evangelizing, because like that's your job. Like you sell people the vision, right? Like I have this idea for this thing. It's in my head. I need to get it out of my head and put it on a paper, and then put it on a piece of paper into a prototype, from a prototype, make it into a real business, into a real company. And then people get involved and like their livelihoods get involved. So like, it's like birthing something, and it's hard. There's so many parts of this process that I just didn't have a good, it's like not being able to see around the bend of the staircase. And there are other people who have been doing it for, like 15 years, like they've built companies and like sold them. And you tell them, hey, I have a problem with this. And across a lunch, they give you a solution that you've spent 3 months looking for. It's insane. Yeah. So I think you do got to give a little to get a lot.
Well, and now you're like, kind of fast forwarding, you're approaching, it sounds like you're approaching making some like employee hires.
Yeah,
So
we actually have been hiring people. Yeah. So now that we've raised, we have our first full-time employee. We've had some fractional employees for a while, but our first full-time employee is coming on board. We're adding a couple more people, not too many, because we still have quite a few things to work out and learn from our customers. But yeah, like we're starting to grow. Like it's a thing now.
yeah. Well, and like as you mentioned, evangelizing, it's like you kind of have to do the same thing to these employees, because it's like we're going through that now. We've used some virtual assistants, so that's obviously a much easier sell because it's just contract work. But as we're looking to make our first hire into our real estate business, like full-time hire, he's somebody I know, but it's like, trying to convince this guy, like, hey, like, leave your very secure job
Yeah, to come
that
work
is
at a
like,
startup.
yeah,
Only crazy people would do it.
yes, yeah. So the evangelism continues. It's like, you're,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think like it's interesting because yeah, you start a business because you want more freedom and you want to be able to do things on your own terms, but then once you start hiring people, you also then have a responsibility to them. So like I think about like, he just started with us a couple of weeks ago, and I hear him in our like customer meetings, and like we're, here's where we're going and we're talking strategy, and he's learning and he's so excited about this company. Like I'm proud of what we've built, and I'm proud of the fact that it motivates him so much that he wants to be a part of it. And like all of our team members are that way. And I'll say that's one thing I'm like super proud of, is like how motivated everybody is on the team to like solve this problem with me. But absolutely, like on top of that, it's like, oh, this guy's livelihood, like depends
oh
on
yeah,
how well this company does. That definitely like lights a fire under me. It definitely gets me up every morning. Definitely gets me,
yeah.
going. So
So I recently set up an account with your Locum app,
ah,
and
yay!
so I'm not in the market for like a new job or anything, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this anyway, so I'm a little bit familiar with it. So I've been on there, not a whole lot. Obviously, there's a learning curve with everything, but so I guess my biggest question is like, where is the money coming from? Because I know you've raised a ton of money from investors. How do you plan to pay them back, and like how is the revenue generated from this app?
What we're looking to do is turn the sort of like percentage based, margin based business model of recruiting into a tech model, which is called SaaS. So software as a service. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but SaaS stands for software as a service. So we're turning it into a SaaS model, meaning that we want to automate most of the parts of the recruitment process. There still will be people involved, but automate really what happens in the recruitment process is a connection from one party to another, and then like a transfer of information, right? So we can do that through tech, but figuring out the steps in the system, what can be automated, what has to be people, all of that is part of like solving the problem. But on its face, it's really, are we connecting that CRNA to the people who need them to do the work they need to do? And then as a tech company, we're just a tool, right? So we just want to collect a monthly subscription, or a fee based on our performance, right? So if you match with a CRNA and they cover a day, it's a flat fee. If you match with a CRNA and they cover a less than 3 month contract, flat fee, that kind of thing. So like we're kind of, our pricing is pretty much in accordance to like what results our clients are getting on the platform. Yeah.
Okay, so these fees are going directly to the not recruiter. You're like skipping the recruiters. Hopefully, all of them go out of business. Thank you for that. I hate all these phone calls that I'm getting.
Oh
So you're
God.
getting, so you're charging like a fee directly to the hospital.
Yeah, directly to the employer. So
Okay.
sometimes the employer is a practice management group. Some hospitals don't manage their own anesthesia service. And sometimes the employer is the hospital themselves. So yes,
Okay.
whoever the employer or the CRNA is, we charge them basically flat fees all around for certain types of results. So to be on our platform, we charge a fee. To get certain types of results, we charge a fee.
Okay. So I've seen you've been very active in like a lot of these CRNA groups on like Facebook and wherever else. But how are you getting these contracts with the hospitals?
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard. But what we do have a strategy. It's basically a sales process. Like we find the right decision maker, we have a conversation with them, we say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, work with us. Yeah, so it's pretty much a very standard, basic sales process at this time. But also CRNAs have been helping us find them. Some CRNAs are like, hey, I don't want to be looking for my next job on gas work. Can you please post your jobs on Locum App?
Yeah.
Which is great. We want that. We
Yeah.
want that. So, and that's what we're hoping will happen is that CRNAs will see the usefulness of this, because it's not just a tool to connect you with the next job. There's also, a credentialing wallet that's baked in. And now the fact that it's CRNA built is also something that I think, people should be paying attention to, because when you're working with another platform that's built for another type of provider, it's not like as, like tailored to our very unique needs. So like, for example, like our NBCRNA now wants you to have like past copies of your credentials. So like that's something we're working towards. We're going to add a layer to our credentialing wallet where you can store those past copies, like things like that to make your life easier. It's more of like a work-life management tool on the CRNA side. And then it has a marketplace attached to it that connects you with jobs.
So what's the benefit for the CRNAs to go through your app as opposed to another one?
Yeah, great question. So the benefit there for them is that they know that they're not going through a recruitment agency. So what we're seeing across the market is if a CRNA is going to take a temporary job, there's somewhere between $50 and $75 that same employer is paying to the recruitment agency that the CRNA does not get to realize. And so the idea there is, come on Locum App, post a competitive rate. The CRNA who's looking to work with you anyway will match with you, and then you save, some portion of that really, really high margin that you're paying. Think about it. If you're paying like something like $56 an hour per CRNA, we worked with one facility in Texas that was spending over $500,000 just in those fees every year. Yeah. So, and our platform is a tiny, tiny fraction of that.
Yeah. Well, and the transparency of it too. Like, I know I don't work with any recruiters, but like them paying me, just for example, let's just say $200 an hour, they're probably getting 300, but who knows?
No idea. You have no idea.
But knowing that we're actually, I know what I'm going to get, and I know what the hospital's actually offering, I feel like I'm getting the best rate.
Yeah,
in
and
certain
there's no margin in
situations.
between, because we just get paid our platform fee and like go home. And I think that was one of the things that was really important to me, is in how we structure that and how we work with people. We're still figuring, because people are not used to that business model. So we're still like definitely like working with them on like what's the best way to continue to implement it. Another thing that makes it difficult, I think, for CRNAs is, so I haven't talked about this yet, but the report's coming out soon. So the last about 10 weeks, we were in an accelerator program with Google for startups, where you get access to a network of experts with Google. There's like a directory of pretty much anyone you want to talk to. Google essentially allows their employees to spend 20% of their time helping startups solve problems. And so you have a directory, you can reach out to anyone to help you solve business problems. So one of the things that when we first came out was super apparent to us was credentialing is such a pain in the butt for CRNAs. And then so is just like, how much should I be getting paid? And then when we would talk to employers, they're asking me on our sales call, what should a CRNA be making in this state for this type of job? And I'm like, whoa, no one knows. Nobody knows. So of course, my little nerdy brain, I was like, well, let's get to the bottom of this. Like, let's see what's out there. So we pulled like different data about compensation from everywhere we could. We took the ANA compensation report. We grabbed like, I think we had over 4,000 rows of data from Gaswork. We did our own internal survey. Almost 700 people, CRNAs participated to see, okay, like what are CRNAs making in these different markets? And then we fed this information to two different like mathematical models. We fed one to an AI model. We fed one to a linear regression model that we built. And even with all of that data, we could only get to 65% like confidence in predicting a CRNA salary in a given geographical location for a given job. So to me, that just continues to highlight the like desperate need for this industry to have an actual marketplace where you know what the value of the services that are going across it are. So like any CRNA that's asking for a salary is guessing. Any CRNA that's any employer that's offering a salary is guessing. So really, we want to kind of start getting in the middle of that and seeing like what exactly CRNAs should be getting paid and be able to provide that kind of transparency. So that project actually is coming out here shortly. We've got some like baseline data, and we're going to continue to collect it and continue to just try to provide that visibility to people.
So how much of that, and this is kind of like an internal question because I don't want to bring up like a ton of the politics, but how much of that disparity in salaries is because we do the same job as the physician anesthesiologist, but the pay discrepancy is
So I
large?
don't know that I can speak to that because we didn't compare CRNA salaries to anesthesiologist salaries. The question we tried to answer in that project was, can we predict what a CRNA should be getting paid based on the type of job that they're taking? And the answer was not with any reasonable level of confidence, and no one can do it. So
so how did you pull that information? Were you actually like pulling insurance reimbursement data, or were you pulling just like W-2 salaries?
Yeah, we have posted data on gas work, which is just what's offered. So offered salary. We have actual reported salary, W-2 from the IRS. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They publish a report every year. And then we had our own internal survey that we took as well. And we compared across all three, what's the level of predictability that we can get to in terms of those being sort of like the de facto sources of data that's even out there. We asked employers, well, when you're trying to pay CRNAs, where do you get your numbers from? Like, how do you know what to offer? They're looking at gas work. What's everybody else offering? So all the tools that people are using to pay CRNAs they're not reliable. And that's because no one knows what the actual real-time value is. So I'm very interested in that. And I really want to be able to help people, because in order for us to make sure that people are getting paid fairly, without stepping in and like negotiating on their behalf and becoming a recruitment agency, which is the whole like thing that we're talking here, I think we do have to try to show them, what information is out there and how to use it to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, listening to you talk about all this, it's pretty obvious you've done your research. You've nerded out. You've nerded out on this whole topic and everything.
I am. I'm nerding out every day.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, that's what you want. But and then I think, I forget the exact number, but we had seen somewhere, roughly you'd raised some pretty large amount of money from investors. So at what point? Because like again, you have an idea. How are you going to do it? You figured that out. Now it's like, where is this money coming from? Because most people don't have the amount of money laying around that it takes to make something like this. So at what point in the process are you going out and looking for investors, and what are you pitching them, and how are you getting them to give you money?
Good question. Good question. So I rarely have pitched. I think once we realized we were doing a venture-backed business, I enter some pitch competitions, get my feet wet. But most of the investors that we had in this round were people that had already been helping us that just decided to get some skin in the game. So that's what I was talking about earlier, in just like building a community of people around the same problem who really, really want to see it solved. So like our earliest investors were some CRNAs that literally reached out to me and were like, I love what you're doing and I want to be a part of it. There were some that I reached out to and said, hey, here's what I'm doing. And they're like, are you taking investors? And I was like, actually, yeah. We have one investor that is institutional, that was a strategic decision because we need people with those institutional connections to, pull certain strings for us, in terms of like, how do you build a tech company from scratch, and people who have done that before. So we have that investor. And then, again, some people that I met like in this tech community who they've looked into the problem with me. They've talked to customers. They've sat on my sales calls. They've seen that the problem is real. And they're like, you know what, I see an opportunity here. I want to be on the ground floor. Can I invest? And that's the type of investor that I want, to be honest, because I work with founders. I've met founders through the different accelerators that I've been through that are also building venture-backed companies. They're pitching hundreds of investors. They're having meetings back to back. They're getting on stage all the time. I'm a solo founder. I'm solving a problem within my industry that I, already know. Especially in this pre-seed round, especially in this bear market, I was like, I cannot afford to spend hours and hours. I mean, I still had to do, investor meetings and things like that. I still had to get really organized, and that was time consuming, and it's time away from your business. So like, it was really important to me to just like, you know what, I'm just going to ask people for advice, ask people for help. And if they happen to be writing checks, I'll take them. And that's how the round came together. Yeah.
Sorry. I was just gonna say we've been in the beginning phases of using investors for our real estate investing, and one of the things that we've run into is just like, okay, now we're getting this money, and like some of them are family, friends, and it's like, obviously you want to like be a good steward of their money. So what are you doing? Are you using technology to help with that? Are you like, what do you do to make sure that they're not just like losing their money?
That's a great question. For me, I'm so thankful that I had like mentors who had either built companies that had failed or built companies alongside founders who have been successful and been able to like give insight into how that was done. So very early, like some of my mentors made me build a financial model. They were like, if you don't have a financial model, it's like flying blind. You need to figure out how you're going to make money, what's coming in, what's going out, who you're going to pay, who you're going to hire. And financial models in this stage are pretty, they're going to change, right? But having one is super important so you can even see. Like, I think before we even decided what to raise, like we had to build a model and see like, and you're in an Excel sheet making predictions of, okay, well, if this happens and we get this much revenue. And so all of that was done before we ever raised. And we continue to kind of follow that financial model. And then one of the things I think I've also gotten advice to do is also just like have someone with financial expertise to help you work through how you're going to use the funds. I have people advise me, like, don't go out and hire a bunch of people. I'm not doing that. So things like that, you just try to be careful, but there's also a level of, you'll get pushback from investors like, hey, this money's working money. Like, you need to be using it to like grow fast. And it's like, well, that's fine, but I'm trying to solve a problem here. Growing is one thing, but solving the problem and doing it the right way is another. So yeah, I think it's a balance. It depends on the day of the week of how I feel, whether I'm like being conservative or really putting that money to work. I think for me, it's kind of like being in the OR. Like, I try not to do things I can't take back. So that's sort of the approach that I take with money from investors, right? Is everyone who's investing understands the risk. 90% of startups fail. We have no intention of doing that. So I think the right way to move forward is to be asking our customers questions and let them tell us what to build and not go out there and just spend money because we can. So
yeah. I think that's super powerful that you're able to do that and have that conversation, especially in the last a year, 2 years, when inflation's been whatever they say it's been. We'll just call it 10% because that's probably more accurate. I think a lot of people that invest they're nervous about their money just being devalued. But I think it's very powerful that you're able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like the main takeaway I'm getting from everything you're saying is just networking, and like you kind of hear it over and over again. It's like, you're the sum total of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and it's like you're surrounding yourself with even more than that, and then inevitably people like your idea, they start investing with you. So
yeah,
I mean,
and also transparency. Like,
yeah,
everyone that's working on this team, like they see me on a day-to-day on the days when the meetings have been, bad and, everything's going wrong at the same time, I share that with them. When it's good, I share that with them. Our user feedback, I share that with them, good or bad. If someone says, this feature was crappy and, whatever, I'm like, hey guys, take a look. Here's the feedback we're getting. If someone says that this is amazing, it's making my life better, I share it with them. So it's like, we're really building this together, because building a company by yourself is not possible, number one. Or at least building this type of company by yourself is not possible. But also just like, I think people feel better about a leader that they see doing the work every day. And that has to be enough for me. It's like, you see me, I'm up before anybody else. They're getting Slack messages from me at midnight. So I just try to just show up.
Yeah, the crazy CEO. It's
yeah.
But it's like, they can see your passion, I'm sure, and like you said, transparency, communication, like all those things are so essential to building that trust and building like a team that believes in it as much as you do, because that's what it takes.
Yeah. It's getting other people to be obsessed with your obsession.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now kind of, how far into this whole process are you?
Yeah, so we're in what's called our go-to-market phase. Like the last probably like year and a half or so, we've been piloting. Remember I talked about it. We pilot. We built something ugly. We sent it out there. People told us what they felt about it, good and bad. Now we're in the process of like making the changes that they've told us that they want to see. So like we're actually putting that effort and that money into like building the thing. And then we're going to go out and say, here's what you asked for. We built it. Come join our marketplace. That's really the phase we're in right now. Not all the way there in terms of like, I don't feel like we've gotten all the feedback that we need to get. And I absolutely want more. So like here in the next few, Josh says he sees me everywhere. You're really about to see me everywhere. Yeah, because now we're going to start inviting CRNAs onto the platform, like for real, and saying, hey, we need you on here because the jobs will come where you are. We want you to sign up. We want you to have your information up so that when that job comes that matches your preferences, we send it right to you. And you no longer have to really like worry about where am I going to find my next job? You'll get a job feed. You'll be able to store all your stuff in one place. So when it's time to exchange it with that employer, you can very easily. We give you resources. We give you this type of education that we talk about like the market. What's the difference between an agency and a VMS platform and this and that? All the things I've been learning. I make a lot of materials it's funny when I would have conversations with investors and be in due diligence and they would ask you like, okay, about this part of the market, how do you plan to do this? You have to show up to those meetings with a plan, which meant studying. So like, I realized all of a sudden I have this like cache of diagrams that I had drawn. Literally, I draw diagrams and decks and this and that to really like educate people about the problem. And then when I see CRNAs kind of struggle with the same problems on the app, I'm like, wait, they need this information too. So we started kind of like pushing a little bit of that out, and you'll see more of that coming just to get people to a place where they feel confident about, their skills as a commodity in this market, and are able to take advantage of it to their, to the best of their ability.
Is the 3 days a week right now that you're doing as a CRNA, like, are you only working that much because of how much time you're spending in the business?
Yeah, so that's about 3 days a month.
Oh, sorry, that's right, 3 days a month. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
She's like, I'm way past that.
I'm a CRNA first. I want to be a CRNA. I love being a CRNA. I miss the OR, even though I'm having a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's mainly because I just can't. I can't be in the OR all the time. There was a point in time where like my interests and the company's interests started to like diverge, and I needed to kind of like really put focus into it, especially when you have investors. Like I owe them my time, which is why like I'll do, like Saturdays when I'm not supposed to be, doing this anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure that's tough because I mean, obviously, if you're not working in the OR, you're not making the salary from the OR, which I assume you're taking some salary from this business as well.
It's a lot. It's a whole lot. Yeah.
Well, so how has that been? Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, how has that been, like financially? Because
it's not enough.
It's not enough.
Yeah, bags and all that stuff are not cheap, and so
I had to give them
when
up. I had to give them up.
Oh no.
I had to live on the ones that I already have. Imagine
oh
that.
my
Oh man.
gosh, just the trash that's in your closet.
Imagine
Oh,
that. I'm like, ugh.
It's not new. This is a year old.
What is this?
does it even hold the stuff the same way?
Right.
Like the
Like,
key?
ugh,
Oh,
it just doesn't, you know? Yeah, no.
well, I mean, has that been a tough adjustment for you? Because I mean, there is.
I think because I started this company so early, I hadn't been a CRNA for so long that I was used to the lavish lifestyle that I probably would be by now. So taking a little bit of a pay cut, I think, was an easier adjustment, to be honest. I don't really I don't do a lot. I think that requires a lot. I live pretty simply. The things that make me happy are pretty simple. It's like, am I doing something that I love that helps me connect with other people? And, you know, is there a roof over my head and food in my belly? And can I afford the little luxuries that I want every once in a while? And as long as that's true, like, I'm good. Yeah, so I'll say yes, an adjustment in the sense that I'm not looking at these giant zeros in my bank account.
Yeah.
But I would say I feel happier. And definitely the opportunity with this company is pretty large. So I'm hoping that there's some return on investment there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you feel any like sense of like security and like a little like more, I guess, adventurous in knowing that you have this CRNA
Absolutely.
profession to fall back on?
Absolutely. I don't think I would be doing something this risky if I didn't know that I had such a amazing career. Yeah, I think being a CRNA honestly is responsible for what I'm doing right now. I think you just learn as a CRNA that you can do hard things, that you can do big things, and yeah, that you'll probably always be able to make a reasonable amount of money that will keep a roof over your head. So all of those things do lend themselves to venturing into the risky world of entrepreneurship. So I'll say yeah.
And this is obviously going to work out. This is going to be an amazing company. But I'm just going to say on the 0.00001% chance this doesn't, now you have all these connections with these hospitals and you know their needs and you know how much they're willing to pay.
Right. It's not like I'm not going to be able to find a job.
It's a win-win, obviously.
100%. And like, I'm with you. I don't like to talk about that possibility too much, but of course we're also realists. And the other thing I don't think anybody else realized, and that I didn't realize until now, especially when I was in the Google for Startups program, was I have been the product owner for Locum for a year and a half. Like, I've learned a whole new set of skills. I could be a product manager after this. I could go design. Like, I had to learn design. Like, I learned, to design prototypes in Figma. I had to learn, using other design software to user experience optimization software, that type of stuff that I've been learning just because founder, you have to wear all the hats. I'm like, whoa, like my resume is totally different now in the sense that I could decide I'm going to go take a tech job and do that part-time,
Yeah.
So
we didn't even really get a chance to talk about that yet. So you went to, what was this Google thing that you went to? What is that?
I think it was something crazy that happened. One of my mentors encouraged me to apply for it. They were like, the problem you're solving is like really cool, and I think that you would get into this program. So Google for Startups is it's a global program that Google has where they essentially provide resources and their stage for business owners who are solving really complex problems to get into their network, essentially. So there's like annual Google events like Cloud Next. There's, like partnership events that they have. So what they did was they created a program where they invite these businesses in. There's 10 weeks of programming, so they connect you with experts during that program. You get a dedicated mentor for fundraising, a dedicated mentor for machine learning, a dedicated mentor for engineering, and program success mentor. You meet with these people, and then you also get this directory of like experts from all over the world. Like, I talk to people in Canada who are like product design experts. I talk to people in Mexico who were machine learning experts. Craziness. And you literally just say, hey, I have this problem. Can you connect me with someone in the Google network who can help me solve it? And they do that, which is crazy. So I applied because one of my mentors was in the program, and he was like, it was incredible. It really helped. And I did the application because I had intended to apply next year. And I was like, let me just see what the application's like. Practice application. Yeah. And then I got it. It's like, oh God, I actually have to go do the program now. Yeah, it was crazy. So that ended up starting in, I think, April. So we went out to California. The first week was on Google's campus there, did some programming. They get into like your tech. What are you doing? What do you need help with? How can we help you solve it? Who do you need to talk to? What are you measuring? All those things. Like, they really help you like focus. And then they connect you with people over the like 8 weeks in between. And then we had a demo day in New York City at Google's campus there. And then of course I think there were like 400 to 500 people watching demo day online. So that's investors, other people building types of companies. So it's about that network, right? Like leveraging Google's network. And that's what they did for us. And I was telling y'all earlier, it's a crazy thing to be sitting across a table from someone and like eating French fries. And then you say, I'm trying to think about how to solve this problem technically. And I'm blocked, and like my team's blocked. Like what? And like they're building some AI robot that reads skin tones and tells you if you have cancer or something like that. And they're like, oh, why don't you should store it in this cache and parse it to this. And then you're like, I've been thinking about this problem for 5 months. And this guy literally just told me how to solve it over fries. So it's that. It's just being in that network that I think has been really great, really magical. It's helped us already. That's why I think call them accelerators, because once you're in that like network of people, the conversations you have get to like the heart of the problems that you're trying to solve, and you're able to do them more quickly. So that was the whole experience. It was phenomenal. Like one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. Yeah. You
don't have to like give them like any like part of your soul or your kidney or anything like that.
No.
That's good.
I mean, the thing is, I think Google has enough.
Yeah, they don't need much.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great company because they do have that promise to people that they want to give back, and like paying your employees to use 20% of their time to help business owners. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, so we have our final 5. I know you're so busy. If you have time to answer our last 5 questions, then we'll keep you here for a few more minutes.
Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, after 3. Okay.
We'll fly through them.
It's okay.
We'll fly through. Just yes or no answers.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Thankfully, I made sure this was my last meeting of the day, so no one's pinging me.
Great. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one we ask is, what's a top financial resource that you found, and like where do you go to educate yourself?
I got to shout out NerdWallet. Yeah, they're great, user-friendly. Any business or financial like question, I might need to like dig deeper than NerdWallet, but it's a great place to start every single time. Yeah. So was that supposed to name 5 of them, or was that?
No. There's 5 questions.
Okay.
But each question only has one answer potentially. Yeah, you're all right.
Yeah.
So usually we ask, what advice would you give yourself?
I should have said it's the Investing RN podcast.
Well, it is. That's the default answer.
Okay.
Obvious. We're actually going to edit that out and then put in our Investing RN podcast.
Yeah. But usually we ask like advice you'd give to your younger self or new grad self. But I think in your case, because you've done this thing of like taking an idea to an actual product, what would you say to somebody that has an idea that's been procrastinating on that idea to take the first step to actually implement this thing?
Ooh. This is a good one. This is a good one.
To be fair, Josh wrote the question. I just read
it. Okay, Josh, I see your style there.
Thank you.
My first advice is don't build it first. Build something uglier and clunkier than you want. If you're not embarrassed by your first product, you did it the wrong way. Build it in an Excel spreadsheet build it on an Airtable, build it in a piece of paper, and then go and find the people that you're trying to solve that problem for and see if they want it. That was like the first full year of this company. Like, it was so difficult to go out and like wear my heart on a sleeve and say, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem that might not be possible to solve, but let's see like who's out there that wants it. And then over 3,000 people sign up for it. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to raise money. I wouldn't be able to show like proof of concept. I wouldn't be able to. So it's that. It's like you want to be able to tell a story of the problem, the solution, the market. What are the dynamics within that market that make this a viable business? And how much is it going to cost to build it? And what's going to make you different from everybody else? Once you have the answers to those questions, I think then you go and do it. So I'll say my advice to that person is, if you're thinking about it and you want to take the first step and you're scared, that's the right place to be, right? Because business is hard. But the best place to be is in a place where you know that this is a viable business. And the only way to do that is to go out and just like get the data, get the information, show the proof.
Yeah. I mean, even in our business, that's been something that the three of us, so it's me, Colin, and Jennifer, my sister, have kind of struggled with, because some of us like things to be perfect and some of us like to just throw things at the wall and see what works.
Yeah. Yeah, no, something that someone told me, I read this book, I tell everybody to read it now who wants to start a business. It's called The Lean Startup. Lean startup principles come from the Toyota company and how they approach building products for people. And that's the idea, is if you spend a lot of time and a lot of energy building something and hoping that people will come, sometimes that happens, but it's very rare. There's a reason we're on the iPhone 15, right? So like, you've got to start somewhere is really it.
Yeah. All right. Our third question. So it's kind of a two-part question. What excites you about the next 12 months? What does Locum App look like 12 months from now? And then also, this is just like a little side silly question. I'm wondering, what's the significance of the K in Locum App instead of the C?
Okay, great questions. I'm most excited about the people that we'll continue to meet along this journey. Yeah, it's just been a magical experience that people will reach out and be like, hey, I'm a CRNA in Maryland. I love what you're doing. Like, how can I help you? So I'm just excited to see like where more of that will come from. CRNAs within our community, like who, are creators and already have a culture and a habit of helping other CRNAs, are like, hey, like, we want to help. So I love that. And I'm excited to continue to lean into that. The K in Locum, it stands for changing the status quo. It stands for making something different than what already exists. It stands for making something better than what already exists. So I wanted people to look at the name and know exactly what it was for, but also know that it was a little bit different than what they're used to.
I was worried for a second as we're talking about things being spelled differently, because you're like, the K stands for changing. I was like, I shouldn't know how to spell change either.
Good one.
But then you said status
Okay.
quo. I was like, okay, all right, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on. Apparently my camera's overheating, so
good.
I'm sorry. I'm having technical Josh and I are struggling today, but question number 4 is, how do you define success?
Ooh. Y'all are hitting me with the hard questions today. How do I define success? I think really it's giving it your best. I think when you show up and you do the work and you're true to your values in doing that work, I think that's success. Yeah.
That'll do. All right. 5th question. Final question is, what is the biggest financial mistake you've made, and what lessons came from it? Which one?
Which bag was it?
I never should have said the thing about the bags. You said what was the worst financial mistake I've made?
Yeah. Biggest. Yeah.
I think it's not buying Bitcoin when it was like 3 cents.
Yeah. Back when we were 4 years old.
Yeah, like I
What
should have
were
been
we
thinking. I
thinking?
should have been taking my what was that? Where was I working then? I think I was at Subway or something like that. I should have been taking my Subway money and
Oh
investing
man,
it.
those are some of my favorite memes. It's like a sad person just crying and thinking like, why was I not buying real estate
Why
when I was
didn't
5
I
years
just
old
put
or
$200 in
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin in 2008?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, legit.
Well, I'm kind of curious too, because my buddy that I went to college with is from Kenya, and I remember him telling me about something that sounds similar to Bitcoin, where people were like paying with their cell phones and stuff like that years ago.
There's so many like meme coins that came after Bitcoin. I wouldn't even be able to. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I played that game for a little bit and then I said no. It's not for me.
Yeah, you gotta find what works, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my biggest
But
regret.
That would have
Worst
paid for Locum
financial
App
decision I
by
ever made.
itself.
Listen, I wouldn't have even had to. I'd be on a beach somewhere sipping Mai Tais, like they say.
well, so that's a good question, because it's like as you're building this company, like what is the end goal? Is the end goal eventually to sell this thing and go sit on a beach and sip Mai Tais and hang out, or do you feel like you've kind of got this addiction to like building the company and solving
This
the
is a
problem
good question. It's coming up more and more. I think I'm gonna have an answer at some point. I do have an answer. Maybe it's an answer that I'm not sharing just yet. I do think though. Again, I'm very big on listening to mentors and advisors and talking to people who've been there and done that. And in the life of every company, there comes a time where the interest of the founder and the interest of the business will diverge. So I don't know how I'll feel then, but this feels pretty personal now. It feels like something that I'm really excited to wake up every day and build. So yeah, I'll be doing that for a while.
I think that is not talked about a whole lot, is because like you always imagine that the founder will never like you said, that interest will diverge at some point, but that's never really like talked about a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm approaching it from a healthy place. That I'm approaching it from a smart place of just what do I want the most, and that's to solve the problem. Beyond that, we see how it goes.
After that, you can buy real estate with us.
Yeah.
But I think to that point, it's like, you start this company because you're truly passionate about a certain problem that you want to solve. And it's like, if it gets to the point where you're not the best person to lead that team and to carry that forward into the future, then the best thing you can do is to step aside and let somebody else do it. And like, I think it gets misconstrued as like, oh, you're just selling out, you're trying to like whatever. But it's like, no, there's a certain point where you're not the best person anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely talked to people who have experienced sort of like both sides of the coin, where the founder's done that and it has gone phenomenally, and the founder's done that and it hasn't gone so well. I think it really, honestly, the reason that there's no answers to that now is that it's too early to tell. Yeah, it's way too early. We are still becoming, even though we have already become, because there are so many people on our platform that we're serving and that we're happy to be serving. So we're in that space where we're like, okay, like what will this be? Which is really interesting and really exciting. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
So if somebody wants to find out more about you, see what you're doing, invest, any of the above, where would they go to find you?
Yeah, so we did start a wait list for investing literally last week because I'm not taking any more investment meetings. But anyone that wants to have a conversation, join that list, can find me at joy@locumapp.com. They can also reach out to me via Facebook. I'm on Facebook. You know that, Josh. Yeah. So just my email address, my Facebook. I'm on Instagram also, like through our company account. Yeah.
And TikTok. I see you on TikTok also.
Yeah. I'm still trying to work TikTok. Like I don't know enough about it to really leverage it the way I want to, but it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Yeah. TikTok's hard. Haven't learned that one yet.
Yeah, I see you on there too, and I'm like, okay, keep pushing it.
Yeah. We're trying.
I'm not on TikTok, and I just found out the other day what Josh has been doing on there with little butterflies on his face and stuff. So
yeah, you gotta get really creative with TikTok. It's interesting.
So when I opened our TikTok account, I was like, nobody is on here, so I don't really care what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna
I can do
do
whatever I
some
want.
dumb stuff. Yeah, exactly.
You know, I should be
Like
treating
nobody
it that
cares.
way.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, if you're not embarrassed of your first product,
You're not.
then,
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
not doing it right. Yeah, you got to get out there.
Exactly.
You
So
got
I'm
to
doing
take
it
a
right
risk.
so
because I'm embarrassed of some of my videos.
yeah, you're definitely doing it right.
All right.
All
Well,
right, guys. Well,
thanks again for coming on. We appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yeah, thanks
absolutely.
for your
This was
time.
fun. This was a good
Yeah.
break in the day. Thank you.